Hi, welcome to CCTV, Channel 17, live, live at 5:25, the Preservation Burlington show. You'd think I'd have that down pat by now. Preservation Burlington's a nonprofit 501c3 organization whose mission is to preserve and protect the historic architecture and livability of Burlington through education and advocacy. We do all of that stuff. Normally now, I would be talking about upcoming events and stuff, but we just concluded the Homes Tour. It was, again, wildly successful and well attended, so that was fun. And I know that if people are interested, we can go to preservationburlington.org and see. We have some upcoming things. We had just this past weekend, we did an architectural tour of the South End. And a volunteer of mine at the museum attended it, and he said it was really great and fun, and that was Karen Norwood on our education committee. So we've been busy with that stuff, and I'd just like to thank everybody always for participating in this stuff and following it up. But we have a lot to talk about tonight. Charlene Wallace from the North Star Community Hall. It's the name progression for the history. So you guys have been doing an amazing project, and I would just do you want to give people a little bit of a backstory on what the community hall is and what it was?
Right. Well, the North Star Community Hall was a social club since 1895 right up through 2022. And founded by Germans, built by Germans back in 1895. And the hall, it had a thinning crew interested in membership and being there as the world changed, and people have other interests, and social halls are less than the most compelling thing in the 21st century.
Sure, yeah.
So during the pandemic, the building was pretty run down, and I'm a dancer. I have been dancing there for 10, 12 years or so, swing dancing, and I just love the place. And of course, when I go swing dance, I go in the evening, and I wasn't really paying attention. I'm taking a class, I do the dance, and after a few years, I was like, what is this place? Because the outside was crumbling. It hadn't been painted, the clapboards were bare, there was paint on the ground. It was just clearly in need of attention. And during the pandemic, I had become friends with folks who were running the building, and we all said, let's refinish the floor. We're closed. How hard could it be to refinish the floor?
Right.
Well, it's 2,000 square feet, so it actually is hard. And rather than doing it ourselves, we raised the money to do it.
Oh, cool.
And before we did it, we said, well, it really needs a paint job. So we did a 3-day socially distanced painting party over a long weekend, and couples would come in, and one couple would be painting at one end and one at the other.
Yeah.
And Paul Lafayette of Lafayette Painting, who was a wonderful community member, he lent us indoor scaffolding so we could reach up way high into the top of the walls.
Yeah, because it's a big space in there in the ballroom.
It is a big space. And we did a beautiful restoration of the dance hall, also called the ballroom.
Yep.
So after that, I started talking to folks in the community, especially Brian Pine and Liz Curry, who live next door.
Yeah, I was going to say they're right in the neighborhood.
Yep, and the house they live in, was also built by Oscar Heiniger, who is the founder, builder. There was a group that founded the hall at the time of the club.
Goethe Lodge.
Goethe Lodge.
Goethe.
Yep, the original name was Goethe Lodge, and so around town it was always known as the German Club.
Okay.
And they have experience in historic preservation and had been keeping an eye on the hall as they lived there next door at least for 30 years. And really have supported me in figuring out, me and an entire restoration team, in figuring out what are the steps to get this building restored. And the first step was become a nonprofit. So Preservation Trust helped us with that. They gave us a grant for legal expenses to actually convert it from, at the IRS level, from a social club status to a nonprofit. And then we were eligible for nonprofit historic preservation funding, grants, in other words.
Grants and stuff, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so.
Well, that's a trip, to get from one point to another place to make that happen. And it sounds like you've connected with all the right people who, I know the Preservation Trust are full of experience, and they help groups with this sort of thing a lot.
Me too.
I'm thinking just recently, not that recently now, but the VFW in downtown Burlington, like you said, these groups and these clubs are they don't have the membership that they used to have. So it's inspiring that that was happening in a sense here, and you and your board and stuff got together to turn that around.
Yeah, it's been exciting and fun. I love old buildings. I get my hands into it, hands-on some of the time, and I also, computer a lot because I'm the grant writer.
Right.
So it's a little bit of each, and picking the colors, figuring out the right clapboards, all those little details that you do when you restore a building have been interesting to me, having been kind of loving old buildings all my life.
Right. Yeah. Pull up a couple pictures.
So we've got some slides here. This is a picture of the members of German clubs from around the country, or maybe the Northeast, back in 1936. This is the oldest picture we have of the building.
Oh, okay.
And there's the location. It's at Crowley Street, which is right off of North Avenue. Very tiny little dead-end
right?
residential street.
L-shaped.
And all houses on all around. And apparently back in the day, behind the club was stables where folks who came in by horse could stable their horses and go to events at the hall. A lot of folks came in from Colchester.
Okay.
As well as the immediate neighborhood, of course.
Yeah.
So the neighborhood got built up after that. And there's our historic marker from
I recognize
Preservation
that
Burlington.
logo.
You know a little bit about that. And we're also on the State Register of Historic Places.
Yep.
And we are going to be hopefully on the National Register. We need to apply for that, and that's a kind of a long process.
Yeah, it is a long process.
Yeah. We had a grad student in the UVM Historic Preservation Program work on the research for that not the last semester, but fall semester.
Okay. Who was that? What student? Do you remember?
I don't.
Okay.
Name escapes me.
We work with them at the Shelburne Museum, and then sometimes they work
Right.
in my shop also, just to get some
Right.
hands-on
Yeah,
experience.
he
So I
was
mostly know
terrific.
them.
Yeah, I apologize that I can't remember. But yes, he was great. So there's our evolution. Back in late 20th century, really 1994, the folks who were involved with the hall, they changed the name to Champlain Club. So for the last 25 years, it's been known as Champlain Club.
Yeah.
And then it was only in 2022 that we renamed it North Star Community Hall.
So where did that name come from?
We did an extended process of surveying the community and having meetings and debating names, and finally Liz Curry came up with North Star, and that was a name that everyone could agree to. And it feels right, we look to the north, we have a guiding star. It's an arts and culture mission that we have now.
Yep, it's
So,
a community hall.
There's our mission there. Goethe Lodge's motto was friendship, love, and humanity.
I love that, because
beautiful?
and it just carries through the years,
It
so
does.
1890 something to now, it's still
Yes.
pertinent, right?
Yeah. And they were a mutual benefit organization as much as anything, so that would mean helping other community members, supporting people who were having a hard time, and also celebrating all of life's milestones, weddings and anniversaries and birthdays, and we still do that at the hall.
I like some of the older pictures of the beer hall. Everybody like lounging.
Yeah.
They're almost like leaning on each other. It's like a pile of people drinking
Right.
tankards of beer.
Yeah, they had a lot of fun, and we do that now. So now we're a vibrant home to share, learn, and connect through the arts, dance, music, and other events. That covers a lot.
That does. And you guys have been busy, right? Schedule-wise, you're booking out.
Yes, and I've got a few slides of all the things that we're doing that'll come up in a little while. So there's our original charter, and the arts was part of the founding. There was a German group called the Harugari Singing Society, which refers to a sacred grove and was stemming from German paganism. So, bringing arts, culture, spirituality from the old country to here and singing. So, what could be better?
Right. And then that neighborhood, just like, there's what they call Little Jerusalem, even though it wasn't so cut and dried, but these immigrant communities and the Germans sort of gravitated to that neighborhood and that part of town, hence the building of this, club, this building.
Right. Yeah. All of the streets in the surrounding area were heavily German. There's that one of those pictures of the folks in the beer hall.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Having a
That's
good
in our
time.
first floor room. You can see the diamond pane window there on the left, and that exists now, and I'll show you an updated picture of that
The
shortly.
oak room. Yep,
The oak
I've been
room.
in there. That's a cool room.
Yeah. Apparently there's some beautiful Bavarian carvings, but since there were several fires, I think the fire in 1944 burned them.
Okay, I was
So-
surprised to see that it had caught fire so many times,
Yeah.
for one building.
Yep.
Sometimes that's so devastating, some of the cathedrals around town,
Right.
and but to have it
Recovered
happen
each
4
time.
times and recover every time
Yes.
and get a roof out of one of the
Right.
opportunities.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. So one piece of history is, of course, how afraid and maybe even persecuted Germans in this country were between World War I and World War II. So Alfred Holden was the son. I've got this little scrambled here in my slide. Let's see. Alfred Heiniger was the son of builder Oscar Heiniger. And he was himself a state senator, and he wrote to President Roosevelt to express outrage about what was happening to the Jews in Germany. And then later they hung a picture of FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, in the hall, which is there now still,
I've
to
seen
just
it.
kind of prove patriotism.
Yeah.
And it's a huge portrait. It's like the biggest picture in the entire place.
Right.
But there he is, FDR on the wall.
And it's great. Again, the history. So obviously my mother was of German ancestry, and she was born in '38. But when she was a young girl, she got picked on at school for being German.
Yeah.
And so these things, they always happen. But the fact that that portrait's there, just to remind us. And I know we made mistakes, and I know.
Sure.
Interning, the Japanese Americans and stuff
yeah.
like that. But by and large, we were essentially fighting a good fight. And people here, the Japanese obviously and the Germans, were afraid because public opinion and stuff can change so quickly.
can.
So.
Yeah. So this is about the fires. In 1972,
Okay.
it was arson. In 2005, it was a kitchen fire. We kind of feel blessed to have had that fire in 2005 because it paid for a new roof.
Right.
So that was another way that the hall survived over the years.
Yeah, that's an interesting bob and weave, I mean, the kitchen
Yes.
fire is that's terrible.
Right.
But rather than focusing on that, you're sealing the envelope. You're keeping the water out with a new roof. And that's the first step in preserving anything.
Saved the building.
Keep the water out.
I'm convinced.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So mid-century, the German community dispersed. Folks came along who wanted to collect and gather there, and they kept the club going. But by 1986, they were really struggling. They had problems with paying the IRS back taxes. They hadn't paid some of the utility bills, and they kind of gave it up. And there's Bob Conlon there. I don't know who the other fellow is.
Okay. No, Bob Conlon from Lunigs.
Yes.
He worked at Lunigs forever.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he was a trustee, as they called the board members back then. And he's quoted here saying, "We just don't have the energy, we don't have the money." And they put it up for sale. $110,000, you could have bought this
Oh,
building.
man.
I
I'm
know.
kicking myself.
I know. And it didn't sell. No offers. So a bunch of folks got together and had benefit concerts because it has a stage. It's a great space.
Yeah, it is a
why
really
not?
great space.
This really worked to get them over that hump, and they continue to have shows right up. I don't know. Now it's been years, 30 years now.
Yeah.
So back in the 90s, people will tell you stories about the punk shows that used to happen.
Oh, I bet.
Back in that neighborhood and
music
at
scene.
the hall. Yeah, yeah. Nowadays the music's not so loud. Although when the horns come out in the jazz band, sometimes the neighbors will tell you it is pretty loud.
It's pretty loud.
But it's not like the punk bands.
Right.
So so another 35 years after that crisis point, and the rentals is what kept things going. So rent the space, use the money to pay utilities and property taxes, and keep on going.
Yep.
It was in 2020 that we got inspired by the pandemic closure, and then we started this restoration project.
You mentioned, right, so the social distancing but working. It's a big room, so
Right.
that was feasible.
Yes. Yep. And there we are with all our paint and folks working in all these different sections.
That looks great.
There's the
There
before
we
and
go.
after.
Yeah. Yep.
And after that, we decided to launch a restoration, accessibility, and energy efficiency campaign. So we got pretty inspired, like going from just restoring one large room to realizing the exterior of this building needs some serious attention.
This is how these things snowball.
It really has.
It really has.
Yeah.
Right. You get inspired and motivated. You accomplish a
Right.
thing. You know, you sort of, the roof was there, so you're saving the building. Now you make the main room that attracts people to the place look beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, how do you stop there?
We just couldn't. So the first phase was the east and west sides of the building, which, you know, we decided to do it in phases. If we did the front first, it would be harder to raise money, but it really urgently needed attention because some of the clapboards were falling off,
Yep.
and we were afraid of weather getting them into the sheathing. So the State Historic Preservation Department gave us our first grant, and then we found matching funds, and we were able to get those east and west sides restored.
That's great.
That was 2023. In 2024, we restored the front. So I'll go through a bunch of slides here.
Yeah, let's see some of those pictures.
Yep.
That was really smart, because I like to, you know, I kid around at the museum sometimes, because people don't like to donate for maintenance or even restoration. They like a new building or something, you know.
Right.
But almost you want people to see what's wrong, so it motivates them to say, we need to help.
Yep.
You know, so doing the two sides and leaving the front where people can say, oh my goodness, and then there's a juxtaposition, right? They
Yeah.
can see what it could look like if you had enough motivation and
Right.
energy, people to donate.
Right. Well, it worked to some degree.
Yeah,
because we've
yeah, it
done
was a
two
genius.
phases.
It was genius.
Yeah, well, we had help with all these decisions. So these are some of the funders. Vermont Housing Conservation Board came in at $100,000, and then all the rest of these folks have helped. So altogether, we've raised $345,000.
Wow.
And that is a lot of money towards the total. We've spent less than that on these two phases.
Yep.
We now have the final important accessibility phase, which is involving building an addition on the back of the building. So there's no room in the current footprint of the building to put an elevator.
Yeah, I remember
And crazy
that.
thing is, not really, because it's common for these types of buildings, the first floor is 40 inches below grade.
Right.
So you can't even have a first floor that's accessible because it's a stairway. I mean, maybe a ramp, but it's the ballroom that's really the centerpiece of the building.
Yep.
So we want to get people to the upstairs. So we are continuing on that fundraising track. Here's some photos of the building as it's was before we did the front, but
Yeah.
when we had done the side.
Yep, you can see, right, how that's what it's supposed to look like. And then you just need to
Yes.
bring that around to the
Right.
front.
Yep. There's some of the diamond pane windows
Oh,
on the
beautiful.
front, which are fairly unique in Vermont, not very common. And handmade, beautiful leaded glass.
Yeah, yeah.
And inside, one of the windows had been boarded up. We took the plywood off, and we found it really couldn't even be restored. So we ended up putting all new Pella windows in that are to the federal historic standard.
Yeah, the Secretary of Interior standards
Exactly.
and guidelines for.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was pricey, but boy, are they beautiful.
And functional, easy to work, easy to use, easy to work.
Yep. And energy efficient. So there's the big window going in on the right. And the corbels up at the top are getting their prime coat of paint.
Yep.
And when the front was done, we actually had to remove the sheathing and get new clapboards. They were so rotted.
Yep.
The sides, not so much. So the front faces the south. Gets
Yeah,
really
got the
beaten by the
weather.
weather. Yeah. And we were able to restore the sides, which was really nice. And when we bought the new clapboards, we bought them from Ward Clapboards
Oh, yeah.
in, is it Morristown?
Morrisville.
Morrisville. And they make historically correct clapboards
Yep.
with local wood.
Yeah.
And I was really glad that we were able to
That's
use those
terrific.
clapboards. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a great company. They have a long history too. They've been there and doing that in that family for generations.
Yeah, they have a really fun YouTube that you can see the old machinery because they're using the original saws.
Yeah, and they
in
do
the mill.
not rip sawn. They do that quarter sawn. So every log gets cut like this, so the
Right.
pieces come out. You know, every log is a bunch of
Yeah.
different cuts.
And they're little wedges.
And so that the grain is all straight grain. It doesn't warp and split. And
Yeah, beautiful.
That's
Beautiful
terrific.
wood.
Yeah.
It was great to get it.
and Vermont.
Yeah,
Oh, that
so
looks great.
once we were done, there it was. That was just December, and we got our new sign there, North Star Hall.
Yep.
And jumping forward, here's the budget.
Okay.
So the total budget for the project is $441,000. I'm looking at probably that's going to go up at least $100,000 because we're getting quotes for this addition and it's a lot more expensive than we expected. So the lift itself is about $47,000, and then of course you have to build the box, and you have to electrify it, and you have to do some site work where you're digging down below to go to the 40 inches down, and this is called a two-stop lift where you enter at ground level, you go down 40 inches to the first floor, you go up to the second floor, and bathrooms are on the first floor, so you need both.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, it's a small footprint, perhaps, but it requires foundation work. It's like building a giant, tiny little house, you know,
Pretty
with an
much.
elevator in it.
It's 10 by 12. It's small.
That's it.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. I know, and you know, there's so much uncertainty right now too, with costs and tariffs and the cost of steel and concrete and everything else. So it's a challenging time.
It is.
So, but it looks like you're rounding up. You're assuming the worst and trying to continue the push, the fundraising push.
We would probably need to raise $200,000. I'm waiting to hear back from a grant from the Vermont Arts Council for cultural facilities, hopefully getting some from there, and then go back to the community for some more major gifts and foundations who could support us, hopefully.
So you've mentioned, so I know that you're secretary, right, on the board. Is that still true?
Yes.
And you're primarily the grant writer for the
I am.
for your group.
I'm the chief fundraiser.
Chief fundraiser?
Yeah.
Wow. No burden there.
No. I have a lot of experience in nonprofits, and I've always worked with executive directors who handled all the fundraising. Never really wanted to do it myself, but after decades of working in nonprofits, I said, I could probably do this.
Yeah, you know how it works.
So, yeah, getting there.
You're doing a good job.
Thank you. Yeah.
Very impressive.
Yeah, so there we have grants of $160,000 so far, foundation gifts of $55,000, and then 3 major gifts that total $105,000. So really terrific support. The community has come out, 90 donors so far.
Wow.
Totaling almost $25,000.
That's terrific.
It is. It's really amazing.
So scheduling and events and doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
So how's that work?
I'm going to skip over this. It's a little bit about our colors.
Oh, yeah.
And there is a final side-by-side of what it looked like when the clapboards were falling down and now it looks like now.
Wow. That's so impressive. I love you still have the Goethe Lodge
Yes, we decided
signage
to
under
keep
the
that.
window.
Yeah. And that's it's a recently made sign, but it's in the style of
it
the
looks
old
like the
sign.
old ones.
Yeah, so that will always stay on the building.
Yeah, it's neat. It tells the evolution, the history and the evolution of the building. You know, so the North Star is right there next to the doors, but hey, this is where we came from.
Exactly. Yeah. So accessibility, I've talked about that a bit. That's the list of what we'll do. There's a diagram of what it will look like.
Okay,
Michael
neat.
Wisniewski has been the architect to design this addition.
He's great.
Yep. And there's a model of the wheelchair lift that we'll use, which will be inside that addition.
Yep.
So activities, we are doing so much. It's way fun. The African drummers are with Jake Hulu Dance and Drum Theater.
Okay.
The jazz band was produced by Vermont Swings, the swing dance community. And there's a lesson with swings on the left, we call them swings, Vermont Swings, and on the right, the African dance.
So is there something going on almost every night?
Almost every night. Sunday, there are things going on during the day, not so much the evening. So if anyone's looking for Sunday evening activities, the hall is available.
Okay.
There is probably two Saturdays a month that the hall is available. Monday nights are intermittently available. Tuesdays are never available, neither are Wednesday nights, and Thursday nights are booked. So there's lots of open spots and there's lots of daytime spots. And so in the afternoon, piano lessons are happening downstairs in one of the smaller rooms.
Oh, cool.
And Thursday evenings and Sunday mornings, Vermont Longswords has a class.
I saw that. I saw the picture. That's kind of neat. So it's like fencing.
Yes. And we have special events all the time. So you remember this, we had Preservation Burlington
I think that's
walking
me on
tour.
the stage up there
I
talking
think so.
with Sylvia.
Yes, exactly.
That's right. I remember this.
A good interview. And of course we lost Sylvia last year.
Yeah.
She was 93 when she came to do her talk. What a wonderful person. And it was her grandfather who built the hall.
Yeah.
So she met her husband at the hall. She had wonderful stories about it. And
She really did. She was a lovely person, so easy to talk
Yes.
to. And she
Yeah.
had just such, obviously, almost 100 years of memories in that neighborhood,
yeah, really loved having her there.
She must have loved what you guys were doing.
She was a big fan. We were her fan. She was our fan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it went back and forth, right.
Yeah. And there's a neighborhood potluck. We do those sometimes twice a year. And in February, we had the Young Traditions Touring Group. They came together from around the state. They started rehearsing at 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. they performed on our stage. And they were terrific. I mean, look at all these kids with their strings instruments.
Yeah.
It was fabulous.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Rehearsing.
So if you want to rent our spaces, the range is $25 to $45 an hour for the Oak Room, $45 to $65 an hour for the Ballroom, or the entire building, $100 to $150. It ranges depending on if you're a regular renter or a one-time renter, and we're always happy to have a conversation with folks who are interested in using the space.
That all sounds really reasonable, especially when you think of like if you need the whole building for something, for some kind of an event or wedding or this or that.
Yes.
That's a pretty reasonable rate.
And there's a kitchen space, not to cook in, but counter space, sinks, a warming oven, microwaves, that kind of thing.
Yeah, neat.
So we have a 6-member board. We are interested in finding more board members. So if someone's excited about perpetuating this incredible community space, I would love to talk to them.
Yeah. Always. Do you guys have a website or anything like that? Okay.
Yep, northstarcommunityhall.org.
Okay, terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, Preservation Burlington's a 501c3, and we're always on the lookout for people either to volunteer or to be on the board. And, I mean, it's a great way if you love old buildings, or in your guys' case, if you love dance or if you love music or anything like that, there's so much opportunity to help out and help create that.
It is, and it's fun. And we have all this opportunity to create events. People like to have concerts, have a band come, poetry reading, art event. We're open to ideas.
All of it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. It's a wonderful space for that kind of thing.
It is.
I've just been, so I moved up here in '98. I almost bought a house on that neighborhood. If you look at one of the blue house that's at the end there, it was for sale at the time.
Wow.
And for one reason or another, it fell through. But, so I love that street.
Yeah.
I've admired that building forever.
Right.
And just watching what you guys have done over these past few years, really, to turn this building around and continue its history of serving the community is just incredible. So,
thank you.
Big fan, very, very impressed.
Great. The board has been through a strategic planning process with a facilitator, Nathan Suter, who has passed just a few months ago. We're sad about that. He was wonderful, and we came up with a really clear plan for sustainability. So we're excited about going forward with that with the board. And then volunteering. I mean, this is why we do what we do. It's the communities. It's that third space. I don't know if you've talked about that much, but we're at home and it's our first space. Work's our second space. The third space is the places we gather in community.
Yeah, yep.
So that's what gets me going. And here are some of the opportunities for volunteers.
What volunteers could do, yep.
Here's some pictures
There's how
of
much
us.
fun it is working on the building.
It was way fun. I'm always happy to climb a ladder.
Yep.
I've been on the roof many times.
Oh, I bet.
There's some of our folks. And
Nice.
a quick few pictures of our spaces.
Yeah.
It's the front room, there's the hall, and we just
Beautiful.
refinished the floor here in these 2 rooms, the ballroom and the oak room. So,
Beautiful.
we're laying the foundation for the next 100 years.
Yeah,
We've
and
been
it's
here
good.
for 130.
You're stewards, that's great, and that's what preservation is all about, is serving the community, being there, telling the history, and being there for another 100 years. We don't, we build buildings for 40 to 60 years now and we knock them down. So when
So
groups like you
sad.
guys can get together and
Yeah.
keep, that's real sustainability, So I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you so much.
It was really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we'll do it again, and we'll have, I'm sure Preservation Burlington is going to be hosting more events there and doing some more stuff, because it just gets better every day.
Thanks.
I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. To CCTV Live 525 Preservation Burlington. I'm looking at my crib notes, but for more information on Burlington history, the Goethe, North Star Community Hall, or anything else, and our tours, events, or to get a marker for your house, like we saw on the slideshow, go to preservationburlington.org, and we'll see you next month. Thanks for tuning in.